Disclaimer: the following video contains spoilers.
So, if you would like to watch the series blind, don't blame us for spoilers.
You're the one watching the video.
Hello! Welcome to our episode review of the first episode of Astro Note. My name is Bird Walker, and I'm here with
Bawxmethod.
And today we are going to give a rundown of our thoughts on the first episode of Astro Note. We've both watched it, and we're going to give our thoughts of where we're at currently and how things are going to go in the future. Bawx, why don't you start us off?
Sure thing. So, starting off in this episode, we see a giant space battle. Like, we're talking 80s, hardcore, really cool space battle, animated in a very 80s style, which for me, interestingly enough, it actually threw me off pretty quickly because I had to actually pause the episode, look it up, and be like, wait, this anime came out in 2024? What? And it was weird, but I did like it, and it grew on me over the course of the episode.
It is a little bit weird with the art style because the different characters seem to be, they're all in the same art style, but they seem to be drawn with different principles. So the main lead, the main female lead, they're drawn in very similar fashion. But then you have a young boy character that's drawn in a little bit more cutesy style. We have a middle-aged man who looks like something out of a gag manga where his head's just like a cylinder. And then you have a super cartoonish older man, and then you have like this nerdy, like relaxed sort of girl in it. So they're all in the same style, but they're all drawn with like a different feel to them. Do you think that's accurate?
Yeah, I think so. They're very distinct from one another, and it helps for remembering each and every character, and I like that a lot because it lets me be like, okay, this character is this with this personality, this character is this, and it gives them a uniqueness, in my opinion.
Yeah, the art style is certainly a unique one, and I like it. There's a lot of mix of harder line work and then like almost like watercolor backgrounds. But this is all contrasted with the fact that it starts with an 80s space battle in very much the vein of like similar design principles of early Gundam and space battleship Yamato, because the alien ships look peculiar. The main ship that's flying around clearly looks like it can transform into something because it's all blocky with bits and bobs coming off of it. So it's going to be interesting what sort of different art style shifts happen. It's not to the point of like Fooly Cooley level where it's like shifting art styles all the time, but it is neat to see the different art styles mesh together.
Yeah, for sure. So moving on, we go immediately into this nice humble little town where we meet our main character, Takumi, who is looking at this lodge. It basically, he's there talking about wanting to apply for a job, specifically a chef job that was posted by Mira.
As we were saying, it's kind of hard to describe this building, but in the way it's like really is, because it's started as the Astro Lodge, but it's on the signboard says Astro Note because it's like weathered and aged. So I assume part of the letters have fallen off to make it read differently, but it's basically a boarding house. We see later on in the episode details about the rooms, but effectively everyone has a bedroom and a space to call their own, but there's like communal bathrooms, communal spaces. So everyone has their own room that's locked, but they all share the bathrooms, the kitchen, like the basement, stuff like that. Interesting note, they go down to the basement, and there's this another note where Mira doesn't know what things are, and that is they see a traditional drink that is made by pickling plums, and she has no idea what it is. But the real weird thing about it is for some reason in this pantry, which has jars of this drink that dates back decades, so clearly the previous owner was an enthusiast about that, the door leading into the basement is like a submarine door. So whoever the previous owner was just like, no one is taking my pickled plums.
Right. So there's like private areas, and even later on in the episode, they show that if you're using the bathroom, you have to put up a sign saying, no, don't peek. And I think that's a pretty good setting for what's about to happen.
Yeah, it's always a good setting for a romantic comedy to have the male and female leads living together, because there's all sorts of accidents that can happen.
Yeah.
But speaking of accidents, part of the reason why Takumi is there is because Mira, not knowing much about putting out a job application, because she's recently taken over the job as the proprietress, so she's recently taken over as the manager of the building. So she has it down as like a hotel-style kitchen, when in reality, they just need someone to make breakfast.
This was something Mira directly copied off like an actual official hotel brochure when you have all the characters, the tenants of this boarding house, basically come over and roast her, trying to be like, what did you have Takumi sign up for?
It really does play on this whole element where everyone starts teasing her about being clueless, not really knowing about the difference between a magazine or posting an online thing or in the newspaper. She's not the most adept with her managerial job.
And I like that. I like that little detail that's like sprinkled in throughout the first episode with her not understanding little things. But when you get to the end, you're like, okay, wait, this makes a lot more sense now.
It's very odd that she, of all people, is in charge of the building. So I do wonder if she had a connection with the previous owner, because it is odd that like someone so young is in control of this building. So I wonder if there's some sort of connection. But speaking of characters, so we have Mira, the female lead, we have Takumi, the male lead, but we also get introduced to 4 other residents of the building in this episode. Bawx, why don't you list them off?
Sure. So we get introduced to Taruko, who is a young lady who at first appears to be very like angry, or she's not taking care of herself. You immediately write her off as like, okay, she's definitely the nerdy type as initially seen, with the whole glasses trope and everything. And then we get introduced to the Wakabayashi family, who is a son and his father, Ren and Tomohiro, both of which are of the apartments living together. The father is known immediately as like a deadbeat dad with no job, and he immediately shows that with like projection, showing like, oh, if you talk about someone who is unemployed, they're very sensitive about being unemployed. And then you have the kid who is seemingly smarter than he looks. And then we're also introduced to Shokuichi, who is an elderly man who just seems like he's off in his own world, And then lastly, we got Naosuke, who is a poodle that initially attacks Takumi at the beginning. And after the fact, Bird over here pointed out to me that there was a specific screenshot as shown on screen here, that there was suddenly a character in the background that you just never notice until looking back through it. And you're like, wait a minute.
It's just like, okay, terrifying ghost woman. So after we do the little tour around the house and everything, it's all of a sudden intro party where we learn something very interesting about these characters, or rather a character. Terako has a bit of a double life, and well, she puts on a show.
At first it's Tomohiro that's like, oh, she's this name, and Takumi is like, oh, what does that mean? And that's her idol name, basically, that she's like this underground idol character. And even Takumi goes out of his way to look it up on his phone to see that, okay, wow, she's pretty popular, actually. And immediately cuts to a gag where she's like, if you post anything, I will sue you or eviscerate you, which I think was a very fun little gag, that she's very protective about her identity.
I believe she also said that like she's the queen of ego surfing, so she'll definitely find it. which is a fun detail. So I am so focused on myself that I'll know that this picture was taken of me at this moment. So don't even try it with these vampire fangs and like demon eyes staring at him.
I wouldn't put it past her if she goes, strapped to somebody's house, like, take it down, or so help me God.
Speaking of characters with like double lives and so on, Tomohiro just seems, there's something not right with him, and it's because they say like, oh, he's a deadbeat, but like, how are they affording to live here then? So there's probably something up with him.
Yeah, even Takumi mentions this in the episode as well, where he was like, man, the bigger mystery is how he's able to afford anything. I think every character has some secret that's going on, and we haven't been revealed to all of them yet. Like, I think
But we
there's
do
something
have
going
one
on.
definite reveal at the end of the episode.
Right.
So at the end of the episode, the male lead is going to knock on the female lead's door. Takumi is going to say hello to Mira, and they're she's talking to someone, this deep male voice, and specifically it's talking about her getting a cell phone because they're so useful because she saw Takumi look up the idol's profile on his phone and see these images.
Right.
She's like, wow, you can look all sorts of things. And then it's just like, her reasoning is just, well, why can't I get one? Because I'm a widow. And of course, Takumi hears this go, she's a widow. It is all crestfallen and slumps back to his room. But then what do we cut to right after that?
All of a sudden, we see who was but Naosuke. Naosuke is talking, standing on its two hind legs, and showing that, you know, he's actually guiding Mira to find whatever they need to find so that Mira can become a ruler of their world.
Yeah. So she's like, she's all of a sudden revealed to be, okay, so I guess she's an alien princess. The dog is probably her advisor in some capacity. But what's interesting is that throughout the episode, Mira is seen wandering around, and we hadn't touched on this yet, but this is possibly the reason why we think, you know, Mira's suspicious, is that she's seen wandering around the building looking for something. And it turns out she is looking for something. She's looking for some sort of artifact or device that's called the key that will make her the princess, or I guess will elevate her to being the queen of her people.
It felt like, okay, there's something off and something's not right. It's like, as you're watching, you feel as though you're watching, oh, it's just typical rom-com anime, okay. And then all of a sudden, bam, it hits you. But, you know, looking back and you're seeing all these weird things that Mira does or doesn't understand, like Wi-Fi or a phone or so on, it just suddenly clicks where you're like, okay, now I get it. She's not of this world.
That is true. It's like throughout the episode, you just get vibes. Okay, something is not right with this girl. And at first, when I was first watching, I was thinking, oh, maybe she's like super sheltered. She kind of she had the vibe of like maybe like a super sheltered like heiress that was like ran away from home. But it's just like, okay, that's accurate, but she's run far away.
Yeah, very, very far away from her home. So that essentially encapsulates the whole episode. So I think it starts off as a very strong first episode because you're immediately introduced to a space battle. You're like, oh, this is going to be this way. But then all of a sudden it transitions quick into something else where you're like, okay, wait, why did it do that? And from there on, you get little tidbits and pieces until it finally hits you at the end with the hook that, for me personally, I really liked. That it kept me wanting more. It's like, okay, why is it like this? What happened? What's going on? How did we get here? And what can I get more information? So I think it's a very strong first episode.
It serves as a really good introduction to things, where most of the episode doesn't really push things forward, but it establishes the characters, some of the dynamics that are being set up. And then at the end, it hooks you, okay, this is what the series is about. Because for the longest time throughout the episode, it's just like, okay, space battle. Oh, romantic comedy. Okay, aliens.
Going forward, I'm gonna say this wasn't a perfect episode. I'm gonna share a couple little gripes that I took notes on. I was kind of cringing at a few bits, and one of them I mentioned to Bert earlier was they're whispering in his ear how Mira's gonna fall for him, and suddenly he goes monkey brain, and he's like, "Oh, pretty girl, fall for me," blah blah blah, which I think was it was not a great bit in my opinion. The other thing was there was some fan service moments, like for example when Mira is awkwardly trying to apologize or be respectful and bow to Takumi. All of a sudden we get just a shot of her ass in this front and center, even though it's faded out. It's there. There's no reason why her ass has to be like in the shot like that. And you know, other than that, the only other minor thing I have is the animation for me, while I do like the fact, after the fact, that the animation is supposed to be reminiscent of early 80s style anime, it didn't hit as well as it on first viewing for me personally. Because at first I was like, oh, well, this anime came out in like the 80s, but then, oh, nope, this anime came out in 2024. And this feels a little awkward. This feels a little like there's something off about the animation, but as the episode went on, it did slowly grow on me. So I did start getting used to it.
Personally, like I think the animation's fun, how each of the different characters are drawn in a slightly different way. But my major gripes of the episode were, of course, I agree with the whole whispering in the ear thing about like she'll fall for you. They could have easily changed that to where like something more like leaning on. They could have set it up like since he's no longer working at where he was working at, that hey, the room will be cheaper if you worked here. It's so easy. All you have to do is make breakfast every morning. It's a simple job,
right?
And you pretty much get to live here for like. They could have easily like played into that, and of course added the whole mirror element as well. But I think they could have like sprinkled in a couple of other ideas there to where it really sweetened the deal beyond ooh, pretty woman. Also, I don't like the dog. I don't like the dog. It's the whole gag where it attacks the dude every time it sees him. And that's like, okay, you aggressive dog. And I guess it kind of makes sense at the end of the episode where it's established that he's a fully sapient being. So he's trying to protect the princess. And it's very obvious that he has a crush on her. So it's probably, bodyguard-esque thing. We're still missing 2 characters though from the credits of the first episode. We're missing another female character, another male character, which is going to be interesting how they're introduced. I have not seen them, and I watched the first 2 episodes.
Final thoughts. I would say this was a pretty strong intro. It got me hooked and sinkered at the end there. I think I'm definitely obviously going to continue watching this. I liked it a lot. I thought initially I was a little off-put by the animation, admittedly, but I've come around to it by the end of the episode, and I'm very curious to see where things continue from here. So, your final thoughts, Bird?
Well, I'm in for it. I like romantic comedies. Romantic comedies are like popcorn to me. I just like, oh, this will be a fun time watching stuff. I think it's just gonna be a sweet little romantic comedy. It's gonna be fun.
Thank you so much for watching. That was our quick little review. So what's going to happen is we're going to do a quick review and initial thoughts on each episode, and then by the end of the entire series, we're going to give a full, comprehensive, deep dive review.
It's going to be a lot of fun. I hope you guys will watch along with us. Now, admittedly, this video was meant to be about 5 minutes, but I think we've been recording for much longer than that. But I certainly had a lot of fun for this first episode. This first episode was jam-packed with detail.
Yep, same here. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you on the next review.
Bye-bye.